everybody, and welcome to the 21st episode of the Coffin Corner Podcast. I'm your host, GoodNightPunk, and with me, as always, is my good friend, the winner. I don't know if I should really say that. The winner of...
I did win, though.
The winner of predictions for this last season. I guess I could say that off the top because the season is over. But we'll get to that for the final scores. But, Richie, congratulations. How are you?
Thank you. I mean, it is a little bit of a spoiler, but if people followed our picks and did the math themselves, they would have known anyways. So, you know.
Yes, for those with the math degrees, you already know.
You made it close. You went opposite me last week quite a bit, and you made it very close. So, hats off to you, my friend. But it was a fun season. I'm looking forward to next year doing it too.
I could have completely been blown out of the water picking 6 different with bonus on the different one.
Yes.
Thankfully, that didn't happen.
That
at least.
Rams-Seattle game got close, man.
Oh man, yes, it was.
Did you see? And I know this is a tangent right off the bat, but did you see this morning the NFL officiating is under fire for that game because of all of the questionable calls?
All the crappy calls the Seahawks got at the end of the game.
Running into the kicker. Yeah.
The push out of bounds after he was shoved by a player from the Seahawks.
And then DK Metcalf not getting flagged for poking Jalen Ramsey in the face. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There was plenty of crap going wrong in there.
Shady NFL, my friend. I mean, I remember plenty of times this year where the calls were just terribly done. And it makes me feel like the NBA, where the NBA, I can't watch the NBA because it's gotten to the point where it's like it has to be fixed. Like, I mean, they've already had issues with refs in the past fixing it, and it just feels so bullshit. And this season there were so many calls in the NFL that I looked at and I'm like, that is clearly a bullshit call. They need to make everything reviewable so that when they make terrible calls on the field, no matter what it is, New York or headquarters or whatever, can call them and say, you got to change that.
And get rid of... I am so tired of that stupid no challenges in the last 2 minutes. Excuse me, but that's when you make your worst calls most of the time.
Exactly. And that's why they do it. You can't challenge our terrible calls in the last 2 minutes because we're trying to influence the end of the game.
The last 2 minutes last longer than the entire fourth quarter, and somehow you can't challenge in those 2 minutes? Give me a break.
Yeah.
So...
Well, anyways, that started us off on a tangent, but... yeah, here we are. Wild card weekend. Season is over. Playoff teams are done. And
those bad calls could have had my Lions in this wild card weekend.
Not only could it have had them, but you look at, especially in the AFC with Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins and Snoop Huntley and the Ravens, the Lions should be in the playoffs, even if it was the AFC. I mean, the Dolphins, just take the Dolphins out and put the Lions in the AFC.
I always laugh because in the NBA they talk about expanding the playoffs, or not expanding it, but making it less not conference based and just the best teams in the NBA. Because it seems like every year, either the Pacific or the what is it? It's not Pacific and Atlantic.
It's East and West.
Either the East is really good and the West sucks, or the West is really good and the East sucks, and it's never has good teams on both sides. So
yeah.
I don't agree with it. I think that would kind of nullify the reason for divisions in the first place. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought when this type of crap happens.
It's just a bummer that we're gonna have the Dolphins are gonna get blown out. I forget who they're playing. They're playing the Bills. Yeah, God, they're gonna get destroyed with Skylar Thompson. Well, the Lions, who finished the season as probably the most exciting team with that amazing Sunday night victory, are sitting at home. Like, that sucks. But
yep, can't do anything now. So let's talk about the teams that are in.
Yeah, speaking of the playoffs, instead of a top 5, I figured we'd just do a quick top 2, who our personal picks for AFC and NFC champion are, and apparently we have the same ones.
Yes, I decided to pick backups because it's hard. It's actually not that hard in the AFC. It's harder in the NFC to come up with a second team. AFC, I don't feel like that it's that hard. But
No,
the
I think
NFC
the AFC has
three teams. I think they have three
really
teams.
good teams with good chance to make it to the Super Bowl. I went with the Bills. Not only, I mean, do I think they're the most talented team? I've been underwhelmed by the Chiefs all season, but the whole thing with DeMar Hamlin, they're emotionally so motivated to win for him that I really think it's going to be hard for them not to win the Super Bowl outright, but definitely win the AFC.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the
And
way
you agreed. But
I agree. I feel like
seconds.
I feel like the way they played after the week after their game was basically canceled and not going to be played. I feel like that. I mean, we'll talk about the games here in a second, but the way they played last week in Week 18, I feel like they're on fire and they got a mission that they're doing for their friend, and so I feel like they're going to play with more fire than you've even seen. So that's why I picked the Bills. But my backup is obviously the Bengals. They did not lose a step either after that being involved in that same night, and they are still on that giant win streak going into the playoffs. So I feel like the Bills and the Bengals, who are the 2 and 3, have a better chance of making the Super Bowl right now than the Chiefs, who are number 1 with a bye. So that's an interesting prospect in the AFC. But I do feel like I don't feel like the Chiefs don't have a chance. I just feel like they're the least complete team, despite the fact that they are the number 1 pick or the number 1 seed.
I agree. I mean, and if it wasn't for the Bills game getting canceled, I mean, the Bills very well could have been the number 1 seed. So the Chiefs have not been super impressive to me this season. The Bengals, they had a rough patch early in the year with some injuries, and now they've just been on fire for the last couple months. And I completely agree. I think the AFC Championship very well could come down to those two teams. And I just think the Bills, with the whole DeMar Hamlin thing, and not to mention they have all that talent, absolutely are my pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and frankly are my pick to win the Super Bowl. They deserve it. I just want it to happen so much.
Yeah. If I'm looking, Kansas City last year was 12-5, and I didn't think they were that good last year either. And they were the, what seed were they?
They had lost to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, they were the number 2 seed last year, behind the Titans, then the Bills, then the Bengals.
Still blows my mind that the Titans were the 1 seed last year, and then just sucked this year. Like, I do not remember that at all.
Yeah, I'm making sure that that's what happened. Yeah, they blew out Pittsburgh. They didn't blow out Buffalo. They beat Buffalo in overtime and then lost to Cincinnati in overtime. So
I remember that overtime game because that was the one that made them change the rule about the possessions, because the Chiefs got the ball and scored a touchdown, and the Bills didn't even get a chance in overtime. So that's why this year they changed it to where both teams
because and that was a 42-36 game. I remember that in that last. I remember this game now specifically because in the last
watching it on the ship.
There were last 6 minutes. I think they scored like 6 touchdowns or something.
Yes,
it was crazy.
I think we watched that on our cruise last year.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the. I think we both agree. Bills, Bengals in the NFC. In the AFC. In the NFC, I went with the 49ers. I skipped over the number 1 seed again, and went with a team that I think is just playing the best the last couple weeks, even though they have Mr. Irrelevant as their quarterback.
The only quarterback besides who was it? It was a really old quarterback, and then I think it was. Gosh, who was it? He's one of 3.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
I'll tell you. He's one of 3 players in the NFL to ever win their first 6 starts as a rookie. And there's only 3 of them ever.
Yeah, I don't even know. They'd have to be really old because I can't.
Well, one was, but the other one and they both were from the same team. Quarterbacks to win. I'm going to look it up first.
All right, well, while you're doing that, yeah, the 49ers, they've got all that talent on offense, defense playing great. And again, when I look at the Eagles, it just lately, the Eagles have not been as impressive. And granted, Jalen Hurts was hurt for a couple games. But I haven't been blown away by the Eagles the last few weeks. I wasn't really blown away from them when they were 12-0 or whatever it was. But yeah, I think the NFC. Brock Purdy is on a magical journey as the next Tom Brady, and we're all seeing it happen live, I guess. And it just makes sense that he'd make it to the Super Bowl as a rookie.
Yep.
What'd you find?
I couldn't find it.
Okay.
I forget who it was, but there was one name that you recognized that is a Hall of Famer, and then the other one, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer because I'm not up to my knowledge on older players, but it was pretty elite company, so it'll be interesting to see what goes on because I think Jimmy G might be a Raider next year, but
yeah, I can see that. He definitely won't be in San Francisco, obviously, and with Josh McDaniels, the coach in Vegas, and him having familiarity with Jimmy Garoppolo, it would make sense for him to go there.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing to me. Yeah. My NFC team is based on nothing more than talent because their last game of the season was absolute garbage. Like yes, I watched the entire game. It was nice to finally get to see an entire Commanders game, but I would have rather been able to have watched the Rams-Seattle game live, but for whatever reason, they didn't have that game on. But the Cowboys have one of the best defenses in the NFL, in my opinion. And I don't even know if that's opinion, but their offense at times can be the best in the NFL as well. The running game between Elliott and Pollard is ridiculous, especially passing. CeeDee Lamb just lives or dies by good or bad games. And Schultz is a very good tight end. So I feel like they have what it takes on offense if their offensive line isn't complete patchwork and not doing their jobs protecting Dak. I look like Dak a lot like Russell Wilson in Seattle. When Russell Wilson didn't have a line, he couldn't do anything ever. And whenever that line in Dallas is playing bad, so is Dak. So if they can figure it out in this playoffs and be healthy, then I think they have a good chance to be the winner of the NFC.
But you think the 49ers are your first pick though, and then your backup pick's the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, if I had to pick a second team, I can't pick.
Okay.
I cannot in the right mind pick the Vikings or the Eagles because the Vikings are pretenders. They've had the most luck of anyone to be as good as their record pretends to be this season, and the Eagles, they've had so many games where they just fell apart randomly despite their good games that these are all good teams now in the playoffs, and the Eagles are going to have to play them. So while they're playing their best football, and I just don't see them passing that this season. Do I think that they're going to fall apart and not be a playoff team next year or not number one seed next year? I don't know. Maybe this was just the magical run, but I think they're going to be playoff contenders for a long time. And so we'll see what happens if they can prove that they're not that they have to prove it to me, but prove it to me for me that they're a better team than they are. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I actually have, I mean, it's not our picks yet, but spoiler alert. I picked the Giants to beat the Vikings this weekend. I think the Vikings are pretenders, and the Giants are playing a lot better. I mean, they almost upset the Eagles to end the season. Mm-hmm. They're playing a lot better, just like they were in the beginning of the year. So I think the Vikings are not even going to win a game. And actually, I'm picking the Bucs to beat the Cowboys on Monday night. Tom Brady is 8-0 in his career against Dallas. Playoff Tom is a thing. I think the Cowboys, Dak Prescott is turning the ball over way more than he ever has in his career. I agree. It's the offensive line. If he's not protected in a little bubble, he's not as good as everybody thought he was. And I think the Cowboys are going to fall flat on their faces. So it's going to be an interesting weekend, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then
Yeah.
we got a few hours till the first game, so that'll be fun.
Yes, we do. And that I think that's the Seahawks 49er game, which should be a pretty good one.
I'm looking forward to the night game, which is Chargers Jacksonville.
Oh God, that one's gonna break my heart because I actually want both teams to win.
I was only glad. I was only glad to see them playing each other because I knew that one of them would go on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You get one of them. But yeah, man, I'm loving the Swagwires this year. Of course, I love the Chargers. We're gonna just dive right into the Chargers Broncos game recap right now because we talked about it last night off the air. Mike Williams getting hurt in a meaningless game pisses me off so much because I don't understand what the Chargers were thinking playing their starters so deep into that game.
They did playing them at all. There was nothing. They weren't going to drop in their position. They weren't going to go up in their position. There was no reason a team that was injured all season needed to play players in that game where they could get hurt.
I can understand if you want to play them for a series or two, just so it's like you want to keep them fresh and not get them, a bye week and they get cold or whatever. Fine, play them for a series. But nothing, you win this game and nothing changes. You're the 6th seed. You're the 6th seed no matter what. The Broncos aren't in the playoffs. Beating them does nothing to help you except bragging rights. It's stupid. And then what do they always say? Oh, don't, it's a meaningless game. Don't play your starters. They could get hurt. And then what happens? Mike Williams, who's been hurt all year, gets hurt and is going to miss multiple weeks, which I guarantee means he ain't playing in the playoffs. It's unbelievably stupid. I love the Chargers. I love Herbert. It's so frustrating to see a team like that was finally healthy, playing their best ball, going into the playoffs, real exciting, and then now it's like, well, Mike Williams is hurt. And
Herbert is banged up.
Yeah, Herbert's banged up.
He almost got pulled out of that game for being hurt, not just because to rest him, but he got hits in the third quarter so many times.
Players get hurt too.
Yeah, there were the injury report for this game is going to be very telling. And I still follow from living in San Diego when they were there. So many San Diego beat writers and all the local people, and they were they were livid. They couldn't understand what the hell was wrong with him. The first time he got hit, he should have been out of the game. But then you kept trouncing him out there after he got hit, and then he gets hurt and can't play. Like, come on, man.
And then you lose the game anyways. You played your starters for most of the game, and you end up losing anyways. So literally, it did nothing for you. Like, it's just, if they lose to the Jaguars tonight because their offense can't get going, or, it's like, oh yeah, it's simply because of the stupid decision you made. And then last year, they missed the playoffs because the coach made the decision to try to win the game instead of go for a tie against the Raiders. I don't know if you remember that one. And that pissed off the Raiders, so they ended up winning the game. And it's like, I don't know, man. That coach of the Chargers makes some questionable decisions.
Nope.
All right.
Don't understand it.
Well, let's start. We already talked about the Broncos-Chargers game, so we'll go with the Chiefs-Raiders to begin. It's a pretty simple game. The Chiefs won, obviously. Jared Stidham again starting, didn't play terribly. He was their leading rusher, which was weird when you have Josh Jacobs on your team. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs getting a win, and that was pretty obvious. Titans Jags, that was an exciting game on that Saturday night game. The Jaguars, the coming from behind, the fumble return for a touchdown to take the lead at the end of the game, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, there were three games I got to watch on the cruise ship, and this one, obviously, the Commanders game and the Lions game.
All good games.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Packers or Cowboys fan.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, good for the Jags. I felt like they should have been winning that game outright. They played a little underwhelming against the Titans, but they get the win. That's all that matters. They win the division. They're in the playoffs. Good for them.
Yep. And
Jets Dolphins with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. I said this earlier about replacing the Dolphins with the Lions. If Tua was healthy, I'd be excited for the Dolphins in the playoffs. But when you're starting your third string quarterback,
Even if Teddy was, I'd be excited.
yeah, I'd be more excited. But it's just it's a waste of a playoff team. There's no way in hell they're going to beat the Bills with Skylar Thompson. So it's frustrating because like even the Steelers with Kenny Pickett, that would have been okay, they're playing better and going against the Bills, and I don't think they're going to win, but it should be an exciting game. The Bills Dolphins is not even going to be an exciting game. I think I read somewhere it is the biggest line in wild card history, or somewhere near the very top of the biggest lines in wild card history, which is just, it's supposed to be the best of the best, and the Dolphins rolling out Skylar Thompson is just underwhelming.
Yep.
Speaking of the Steelers, they beat the Browns but still missed the playoffs because the Dolphins won. Good for the Steelers. They ended on a high note. Mike Tomlin still does not have a losing season in his coaching career, which is just amazing.
When I heard that stat, I was like, really? Not one? But then how many times has he gone 8-8? Because you used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm sure he's gone 8-8 a lot. But still, even that 8-8, considering some of the seasons we've sat through with our teams, going 8-8 every year would not be too shabby.
I agree.
Texans Colts, I loved this. I watched this game, the end of this game. So much fun. The Texans beat the Colts, lose the number 1 pick. Lovie Smith, they get the touchdown at the end of the game. He goes for 2 to win it instead of going for a tie. Gets the 2-point conversion to take the lead. And I loved it because he knew he was fired. He had met with the owner the day before. He knew he was going to be fired. So he basically showed them the middle finger as he walked out the door and cost them the number 1 pick. Good for Lovie Smith. So awesome.
I always liked Lovie Smith, despite the fact that he was a Bears coach.
I did too. It's funny. My dad loved Lovie Smith. The Bears fired him because they were tired of not winning in the playoffs. They were consistently good under Lovie Smith, but they just weren't winning in the playoffs. So they fired him because we're this isn't good enough. And ever since then, they've been at the bottom. And it's like, wouldn't you kill to go back to being a team that was, at least in the wild card conversation, if not winning the division? So big screw up by the Bears to fire him. But I just love this. He knew he was gone. He didn't give a shit about the Texans getting the number 1 pick and getting Bryce Young. He went for the win, got the win, love it. And now the Bears have the number 1 pick, which they're trying to pretend like they're going to take a quarterback with. Come on. We know that's not going to happen.
Right.
They're just trying to get somebody to trade up. That's all they're just trying to get somebody to be like, okay, we'll trade up to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but never going to happen. Bucks Falcons. The Falcons get the win. It was actually a pretty big win. I think the Bucks arrested most people throughout that game. And then not much really for the Falcons, but I did want to ask your opinion, and I don't know if you followed enough to know, but do you think Desmond Ridder will be the starter next year, or do you think the Falcons will take a swing at a veteran or try to draft somebody else at quarterback?
I don't think he'll be the starter next year. I don't know what they're going to do, but he's not going to be the starter.
Yeah, he hasn't. I watched a bit of that game because we were watching Red Zone in the morning because the Bears were getting destroyed by the Vikings, and he had some good moments. But I wonder with the Falcons if they're gonna, because they've got cap space, and I don't know where they're picking in this draft, but I feel like they're gonna want to try to find somebody a little more solid. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they'll bring in somebody to compete. Instead of swinging for the fences and trying to trade for Derek Carr or something, maybe they'll just sign somebody and draft somebody in the middle rounds again and try to compete. But just another team that is searching for a quarterback, and Always fun to watch. Speaking of teams searching for quarterbacks,
By the way,
Panthers.
I looked it up. Mike Tomlin has gone 8-8 3 times
Okay, and he's been a coach for how
since
long?
2007.
16 years.
No,
And only 3 times he's gone 8-8. He's finished above 8-8 13 times. Wow, that is pretty impressive.
yeah, I was kind of surprised that there were not more of them, but yeah, 3 times he's gone 8-8.
Wow. Well, hey, good for him. Good for the Steelers. Must be nice to be.
There were a lot of 9-7 seasons, by the way. I'd say there were probably 3 9-7 seasons too.
Yeah, but 9-7 is sometimes good enough to make the playoffs too. Like that's the other thing with the Steelers.
Lions were 9-8, so I feel like 9-7 is a good record.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. 9-7 is a pretty dang good record. Panthers Saints. Panthers get the win. They've been playing real hard for Steve Wilkes. He might have locked up the job permanently instead of interim. And Sam Darnold. I think they might just roll with him going forward. He was a high pick, played fairly well for them this year when he's been healthy. They do have a pretty high draft pick, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks with that pick. But just another team that's always fun. It's always fun to watch the quarterback carousel go on every offseason.
Yeah, for sure.
Bills Patriots. That opening kickoff was magical. I'm sure you saw the replay of it.
Yes.
Watching Sean McDermott and Josh Allen and the players on the sideline tearing up. I mean, that was so cool. Like, that's just such a fantastic sports memory. And the other cool thing, I did not know this at the time, but I heard this later. The last time the Bills had returned a kickoff for a touchdown, it had been 3 years and 3 months since they did it, which, of course, Damar Hamlin's number is 3. So, just pretty cool. Just pretty cool for them. Of course, they get the win. I think the Bills are, at this point, so motivated to win for that guy that they're just going to keep rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Vikings, Bears. Yep.
I just thought it was crazy that he managed to do that twice in that game.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Twice. Naheem Hines, man. That was pretty awesome. And then they stopped kicking to him, of course.
As they do.
Yeah.
So
good stuff, man. Good stuff. Vikings, Bears. Vikings trounce them. No surprise there. Ravens, Bengals. Bengals get the win. And again, just like the Dolphins, the Ravens are a waste of a playoff team. Snoop Huntley or whoever their third is, I don't even remember his name. Lamar Jackson has been more injured this entire time than they've admitted, which is just stupid. When it first happened, they were like, "Oh, he may not miss any time," and now it's like, "Yeah, he probably won't play again this year." I don't know. I don't get that. I don't know what the whole like week to week lying thing was about. But they're rolling in and facing the Bengals with your backup or third string quarterback. Not gonna happen, Ravens.
No, it sucks too because they're another one of those fun to watch teams when their starting quarterback's playing.
Yes, they are. They've got some time. Mark Andrews, Roquan Smith, who they just re-signed to a monster deal. But yeah, when you don't have your MVP, which is Lamar Jackson, everything else about them is just underwhelming, and you're playing one of the best teams in your conference. So it would be the hell of an upset if Snoop Huntley was able to pull that off.
No, is it Snoop Huntley? I thought his name was
It's Tyler Huntley, but his nickname is Snoop.
Okay, this whole time I'm like, what is this guy talking about?
I just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Eagles, Giants. The Eagles got the win, but I was impressed with how well the Giants played. They kept it close to the end. Maybe they're healthy right now, and they started off the season on, I think it was a 6-0 run. So if they're getting hot at the right time, getting into the playoffs, they could win some games. And I already mentioned I think they're going to win against the Vikings. So, and then the Eagles, they get the number 1 seed, they get the bye. But yeah, it just feels like ever since they lost the Commanders, the whole mystique around the Eagles has kind of been shattered. And granted, Jalen Hurts missed some of those. Actually, he missed all those losses. besides the Commanders. But yeah, I don't know. I can't pick them as my favorite. I just when I watch them play, it's not blowing me away. It's not like making me feel like they're gonna run away with it.
They're a good team that plays good enough to get close wins. If you're playing a team that really wants to win, I don't know that they have all the juice that they need.
Yeah, that's a good point. They beat up on well, they didn't even beat up on. They beat some teams close, but when it comes to they didn't play the Bills or the Chiefs or the Bengals this year. Like they didn't play good teams. They played the Vikings. But yeah, we shall see what happens. Rams Seahawks. This was a heartbreaker, especially with all those blown calls that are coming to light today as everyone, NFL officiating is starting to admit we may have fucked up on this one.
Jalen Ramsey single-handedly tried to win it for the Lions. Single-handedly with all those interceptions. He was doing everything he could to win the game for the Rams. And they were doing everything they could to get Seattle into the playoffs. To get Seattle in a position to make the playoffs, because I don't even understand it, because the referees could have let that game play out any way they wanted to, and the Packers still had a chance to make the playoffs. Seattle didn't have to win that game for the Packers to have a chance. They had a chance no matter what happened in that game.
No, but they needed to keep the Lions out of the playoffs, because when you're talking about fan bases, the NFL believes that Seattle's a bigger market than Detroit, so they wanted Seattle in the playoffs.
Okay, so let's break that down. First off, you don't think that a franchise that doesn't make the playoffs that often, and then finally does under a coach that was just on Hard Knocks at the beginning of the season, not to mention the people that pulled in to be Detroit fans for this season that weren't before, if they had made the playoffs after going 1-6, everybody would have been watching the Lions.
Oh, I agree.
So it makes nobody is watching. The only people watching Seattle in the playoffs for Seattle is Seattle. Nobody else cares about Seattle making the playoffs. If the Lions had made the playoffs, completely different situation.
You have to remember the NFL is stupid and makes stupid decisions constantly. So when they look at, who are our bigger fan bases? It's the ones that have been successful lately. They don't understand that when you have a franchise like the Lions, where the fan base is just thirsty to be in the playoffs, and where you have characters, players, coaches, Jamal Williams, that have become such fan favorites off the field for their personalities, they don't get that. They don't see that. They think, well, Seattle's been really popular the last couple of years. Yeah, because they had Russell Wilson. They're not popular anymore.
They don't have anyone except DK Metcalf.
Yeah, they don't need to be in the playoffs. No one cares. But
anyways, they got screwed. The Rams should have won that game. The Lions.
The running into the kicker was so bad that when I was listening to it on the radio driving to California, even the radio announcers, I didn't watch the play, but I knew exactly what happened, because they were like, well, that's bullshit. He got blocked into him. Oh, okay. That's the rule. That's not a penalty if you get blocked into him. Unbelievable.
And then, even with all that happening, the Rams still almost won, and it's just crazy.
So close. Oh, man. But that's okay, because the Lions next season, they may win that division.
I'm okay with that. Here's the... Okay, we'll get to that after we get to the Sunday night game. But anyways, go ahead.
All right. We talked about Chargers, Broncos. Cardinals, 49ers. Cardinals get humiliated, and Cliff Kingsbury gets fired. Thank God.
I didn't even... Like I said already once, I didn't even think about the Cardinals on Sundays this season.
I didn't even remember when they played this day. When you said you watched the Commanders, I was like, when did the Cardinals play?
I'm like, when Kyler went down, I was like, this is going to be a dumpster fire. It's not even worth watching. And then we're going to have to watch it again next year, because Kingsbury and Keim have extensions.
Yep.
Come to find out, the best thing to come out of this game and this season is the fact that the Cardinals are looking for a GM and a coach. So let's freaking go.
Yeah, I was a little worried with all the injuries that they were going to kind of give Kingsbury a pass and say, oh, with Hopkins getting suspended and Murray getting hurt, it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny, watching Hard Knocks and seeing how Kingsbury interacted with the team, he's not a leader. Like he's not a leader of men. Like you watch Dan Campbell or Ron Rivera and like they lead their team and the players respond to them. Kingsbury just was nothing. Every time in the locker room, just like, you guys are great. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go.
Everything you've described him as from that show, because I still haven't watched it, it reminds me of like the personality of a trainer, a guy who maybe played football in college, or in his case, played in the NFL, and
quotation marks.
Played, but in his case, one of those guys that's one of the boys, is there to help them to get better, but is not really, should never be in a leadership position. Like who I'm talking about. The guys are on the sideline with a stopwatch, like, let's go, come on, we can do this.
Well, and he talks about it in the show about like the differences between coaching in college and coaching in the NFL. And this has happened with college coaches before. We remember Chip Kelly. There are certain coaches that they can coach 18, 19, 20-year-olds, but they can't get respect from grown men. And I don't think any of the Cardinals players respected Cliff Kingsbury because he just doesn't have that personality. He doesn't command respect from grown adults. He can get 18-year-olds to respect him, sure, but not grown-ass men.
I think the biggest thing for him hopefully the old NFL sees this and learns from it. You don't hire a coach that was 4-10, whatever his record was in his one season before he was fired, to be a head coach in the NFL over NFL candidates. Like, that made no sense when it happened. We watched 4 years of it. It still makes no sense. And let's just not do that again. Who cares what Sean McVay did? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They hired him
when Kyler Murray.
Yeah, they hired him a year after Sean McVay. So Kyler Murray and chasing the next Sean McVay is exactly why he was hired. He is not Sean McVay. Nope. He never showed that he could be. And that innovative offense was probably the most boring thing I've ever seen. I think that Joe Lombardi ran the same exact offense for Detroit, and it didn't work, and it sucked. We saw it before. It was
screenplays as far as the eye can see.
Run the ball, throw up the middle, get smashed. Screenplay behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 10. Just stupid plays.
Well, that's something that bringing up a question my dad actually talks about is, did we ever actually see the air raid offense? Was that offense they've been running the air raid? Because if it was, the air raid is not like anything like we were expecting. Yeah. Like, I expected a lot of downfield throws, and we never got that. And I think it's because Kyler Murray can't see over the damn offensive line, so he's not going to throw the ball downfield to no one.
I thought air raid was pass, like mid-length passes, like 8 to 18 yards passes, like all in the middles. That's what I always thought of the air raid, but this was
Instead, we got 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
3 plays, 6 yards punt. That is the Cliff Kingsbury offense. So
yeah, now the Cardinals need a GM and coach. I think they're going to go hard for Sean Payton because they can give him both. Give him control of the roster as GM and coach, obviously. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then they're stuck with Kyler Murray, who will probably miss at least 6 games to start next year with his injury. Could miss more than that, depending on how bad it is. But it's gonna be a fun couple seasons in the desert. That's all I know.
At least there'll be something to watch.
Yeah, it won't be very good probably. Oh, and then they're gonna trade DeAndre Hopkins. That's the other thing too. So glad that I bought his jersey.
You can go.
I love D-Hop though, man. His hands are so good. Like, he's such a good receiver. I hope he goes like, I don't know where he's going to end up. I just hope he ends up on a team I don't hate. Like, I know a lot of people talk about the Bears going after him. I'd be fine with that. I know you wouldn't. But I'd at least get to watch him still.
Yuck.
Cowboys, Commanders. I didn't expect this at all. And it wasn't. It was the defense. The Commanders' defense.
Please don't say
so well.
At least in the first half. Do not give this to Howell, because at halftime I'm like, okay, he can run a team. That's all I've seen out of Howell for a first half. Second half, he actually started making throws and plays with his feet, which were actually pretty amazing. But that first half was all the defense, and that was...
Well, that interception in the end zone was classic rookie in his first start making a stupid decision. But no, the defense in this one, they played well all year. And in this game, with nothing on the line other than trying to beat your rival at home, I mean, they showed up, man, and they really rattled the Cowboys in a game that was meaningless. Well, no, it wasn't meaningless for Dallas. They needed to win to get the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't expect that. I did not expect the team to go out swinging. Very happy to see that. But when it comes to Howell, there were moments that like the scramble touchdown.
He can use his feet.
Throw to McLaurin. Yeah, he can. The ball to McLaurin, like the 50-yard pass that just dropped in perfectly. Yeah, I mean, he made some mistakes. That interception was fucking, atrocious.
There was a massive change between second half Howell and first half Howell.
Yeah.
And it was
all
awesome.
All I know is that for a kid that was projected to be the number 1 quarterback in the 2022 class last year before he returned to school and struggled with a bad supporting cast, dropped to the 5th round, there is an argument to be made for the Commanders to just roll with him next year. And
if they did, I'm actually interested in that, because I feel like given overtime, he'll just be that much better.
See, that's what my belief is. What should have happened this year.
Oh my! Hello, Strawberry and friends.
Oh, what's up?
What's up? Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
What should have happened this year was Wentz struggle and then turn to Howell. Instead, they turned to Heineke and then started winning, which kind of screwed up that plan, because the hope was to get Howell in there for a couple games and see what he can do. This was only one game. That's my fear, is that he got one game, showed some promise, and if it's like Matt Flynn. It's like, okay, now we're going to roll with him next year, and we don't know really what's going to happen because it was only one game.
Well, but yeah, I see what you're saying. The difference there is that you're not going to pay Sam Howell to come to your team next year after one game.
Right.
You still have him. You're already paying him.
Yeah,
Matt Flynn played one crappy game, got one of the best quarterback contracts ever after that one game, made bank, millions and millions of dollars for Seattle, and played half a season as their starter in one of the worst signings ever. So
I thought he got benched for Russell Wilson before he even started.
No, he played games.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought Russ was but yeah, I mean, and again, as a fan, what I want to happen is them to roll with Howell and Sam Howell to come out next year as just, an amazing quarterback, and him develop into our franchise guy. Obviously, that's what I want to happen. But I try to balance what I want with, my expectations, so I'm not just fanboying out. I'm not going to get too hyped for the guy after one game. I liked what I saw. If they do roll with him, I'm excited. I'm not going to go out and run out and buy his jersey. But maybe after a couple of weeks if they play well. But it's I don't know. I want it to happen so bad. I like the guy. I like what he can do with his legs. He's got a cannon for an arm. I saw somebody on Twitter call him a howitzer, which I love.
Nice.
I love a good nickname. And then the other thing was they fired Scott Turner, their offensive coordinator, which makes sense because the offense was sporadic and inconsistent. And when we have all those weapons, and granted, we were starting Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz most of the year, so when we don't score points and don't play well, that's somebody's got to get blamed.
Nope.
But I saw that they are interviewing new offensive coordinators, and they're telling them that you're going to have to roll with Sam Howell as your starter next year. So the team hasn't announced it, but they're basically telling offensive coordinators that they're going with Howell. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's always a chance that when they're picking the first round, some quarterback's falling down the draft boards like Dwayne Haskins did a couple of years ago. So don't know what's going to happen, but well, yeah. We'll see what happens. Now,
well,
let's talk about that.
One last thing from this game that it sticks out in my mind. Fuller dropped an interception. Like, easiest pick six in the world on a 5-yard comeback. He just jumped the route in the most beautiful play I've ever seen. The ball goes into his hands and he drops it. And so I'm like, well, that was 6 points wasted. The very next play, the Cowboys ran the same exact play, the same hitch, and he jumped it even better than the time before that, and then ran it back for a touchdown. Same exact play. I'm like, why, after he almost caught that and ran it back, would you run the same play at the same side to the same guy, not expecting him to be pissed off he missed the first time? It was hilarious. The announcers, everyone was like, why would they throw it there again?
I think Mike McCarthy he's just a nice guy. He felt bad. He's like, oh man, Fuller made such a good play. He was so close. Let's give him another go.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I'm like, why would you throw it to him again? And I'm glad he caught it the second time, because if he had dropped it again after jumping the route like that, that would have been so bad.
They would have given him a third chance. They would have just kept throwing that route.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was a fun game to get the win against a rival at home. And the other exciting thing is that hopefully that was the last game that Dan Snyder will be the owner for. I mean, next year the Commanders could have a new owner, new offensive coordinator, Sam Howell at quarterback. It could be a very exciting season for both our teams next year.
And then the Redskins part of the team will just completely be gone. It'll all be history at that point. All the connections.
Once they get a new stadium too, now, because when I see FedEx Field, I still think Redskins. But if you give us a new stadium, new owner, then it'll be like, all right, we're the Commanders with Major Tuddy. Brick wanted us to talk about Major Tuddy.
He's here.
He's here. All right, Brick. There you go. So Major Tuddy, our World War II era hog mascots. I'll be frank. I don't think we really needed a mascot, but we have one. The hog I'm fine with. Obviously, the nickname for the team is the Hogs from the offensive line in the 90s. The hog thing has always been a part of our franchise for as long as I've been a fan. How my Twitter handle for my Commanders one is Hail Hogs. The Commanders thing, the helmet. The thing that I don't like is his like white tank top T-shirt thing. Like, go all out and put him in a uniform.
I'm bringing it up on the stream.
Are you? It's just put him in a freaking uniform. I don't understand why they're like, it's a jersey, I guess, but it just looks like he's wearing a white T-shirt. Like, give him a yeah. Like, why is he in a jersey? He looks like he's ready to play. Put him in fatigues. Put him in camo. Like, he's Major Tuddy. He's supposed to be. He is out of uniform regulations.
Dude. Yeah, this is. I haven't seen this until right now.
Oh, you hadn't seen it before? Oh yeah.
No. You see the picture I put up?
Yes, I see it.
Oh, that's great.
I just don't. Stuff. I don't. First of all, I don't get the reason to need a mascot. We never had one before. But
at least it's got some history.
Yeah, I like the hog thing, and I like the major aspect.
But see, when
the Tuddy part is kind of like
when Brick sent that text message, I thought it was going to be an actual pig wearing with like a metal helmet strapped onto an actual giant hog. I didn't realize it.
Animal rights activists would allow us to do that.
I didn't expect it to be a dude in a costume.
It's even better.
Yes. I actually think the actual pig thing would have been awesome, but
It would,
every touchdown they can just run him out on the field and do circles like the dudes do at the Cardinal games.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And the other thing that kills me was the name, Tutty. Like, I'm assuming it's supposed to be touchdown. Which, I mean, if you're a fan of our team, those are few and far between. So it's like spitting in your face to name your mascot Touchdown.
At least there will always be one Tutty at every home game.
I guess that was their aim. It's like, well, at least we got one Tutty. I don't know, man. They could have done a better job of leaning more into the like military theme, in my opinion. But
so weird.
Whatever. Yeah, now all I know is that now we've got someone to create more TikToks for us, and let's see how good they are.
All right, Sunday Night Football. Let's go.
Yes, talk to us about the Lions-Packers game.
So first off, let me set the stage for this game. There was a Irish pub on the cruise ship that was playing this game, and inside of this Irish pub, there were tons of people already in there when I got there, right? And so, you know how exuberant Packers fans are. I knew which ones the Packers fans were.
Yes.
And so they were very obnoxious, as usual. Every 2-yard pass, everyone was
Packers fans.
Every 2-yard pass, jumping out of their seats, clapping like it was the biggest play they'd ever seen. The first Aiden Hutchinson sack, which I think was a third down to force a punt, 3/4 of the room jumped out of their seats and were screaming. And that's when I realized that somehow on this ship, us Lions fans outnumbered the Packers fans. And then from then on, it was the best feeling ever because there wasn't a lot more to cheer for from the Packers fans. And I think they realized they were outnumbered and they stopped clapping every time there was a 2-yard gain. So
now let me ask you, because I'm curious, were they Lions fans or just Packer haters?
I saw at least 5 people wearing Lions shirts. So
nice. See, that's pretty good.
But they were polos, so I couldn't tell they were Lions shirts until I looked closer. And I don't normally stare at people that are 5 feet from me until I have a reason to.
You didn't join them for a beer or something when they started rooting for the Lions?
There was a guy on the table next to me, and me and him were chatting the whole time. So that was fun. But it made it a lot more fun. So I'll never forget the memory of that like scene. Then on top of that, the halftime interview that Dan Campbell gave was one of my favorite Dan Campbell quotes of all time. They're like, with the Seahawks winning earlier today, coming into this game, it didn't feel like there was really much to play for. And then Dan Campbell's like, of course there was something to play for. And they're like, so what are you and your team playing for tonight? To keep them out of the playoffs. And in the most candid, like, player coach way he could say anything, he's like, all we want is to keep them from making the playoffs. And
we respect that.
I freaking loved it. They're like, well, you're doing a good job so far. He's like, well, we're going to go now and finish the job. So anything else? All right, I'm out of here. It was awesome.
That is awesome. I mean, it was just such a fun game. Anytime you get to watch the Packers lose at home in prime time to get knocked out of the playoffs is one of my fondest memories ever. Just the whole second half, man, and then especially the fourth quarter. That play the Lions called where they like pitched the ball and then threw it backwards, and it was like a screen, but then it went backwards to a different player who ran. It was
like a hook and ladder screen. It was crazy.
That was such a great inventive play, and you know, it's just so much fun to see a team like the Lions who Yeah, started off 1-6, went on this amazing run in the second half. Jared Goff solidifying himself as their quarterback going forward. I mean, they're not drafting anyone. They're not signed. Like, they are rolling with Goff now. Jameson Williams is going to get more involved. I was so mad his touchdown got called back, though. That dude almost had 3 touches in his career, and all 3 would have been touchdowns. But yeah, that was so much fun.
Oh, that Jameson Williams touchdown that got pulled back. I am super stoked to see him play more next season. It was interesting. Yeah. It's cool to me because DJ Chark had a 1-year contract. And I'm going to be honest, DJ Chark made some plays this year, but DJ Chark, for the most part, was a non-factor. And I don't think they need to re-sign him. Will they sign another receiver that maybe is like a third or a fourth guy? Probably. I don't think we're going to spend big money on a receiver because, A, we already have a number 1. We have Amon-Ra, who is one of the best in the NFL. Jameson Williams needs more play time next year now that he's healthy. And then having Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds, those two together as 3 and 4 are totally fine. And so if you just get a 5th guy in there, they're gonna be in a good spot. So
yeah, I feel like Goff is pretty comfortable with Josh Reynolds because their time in LA together. I think, and with Jameson Williams, he could develop into like 1B. Like you've got 1A in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then 1B with Jameson Williams. That's how good Jameson Williams could be.
Well, the best things with receivers like that, right? Like think of Thielen and Jefferson. You've got the deep threat guy, and then you've got the possession guy. Amon-Ra will always be the possession guy. He catches a lot of balls. Jameson Williams is fast, like ridiculously fast. He'll always be that guy that can get the deep ball. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
where that
and
goes.
Then last thing, Jamal Williams breaking Barry Sanders' record for most touchdowns in a season for a Lion was pretty special too. That was pretty cool to see.
Once Barry Sanders retired, it took so many years for us to even have a running back that got over 100 yards in a single game. I think it was 8 seasons without a running back that did not get over 100 yards in a game before they got one. And now we got a running back that runs for a lot of yards and breaks the single season touchdown record held by Barry Sanders. So 1,000 yards for Jamal, 1,066 yards for Jamal, and 17 touchdowns as the number 2 guy. By the way, Swift has been hurt a lot this season, so I'll give him that. But Jamal Williams played out of his mind.
Did Jamal Williams miss some games too?
He did, yeah. 1 or 2, I think.
Yeah, like I gotta look that up because that's crazy. I mean, 17 touchdowns. Let's see.
He didn't miss any games, but he had a few games where he had like 7 touches, 10 touches. Well, a lot of games he had 10 touches and still went off. So I don't know.
Yeah, amazing.
It's just really good. He's the one guy. So we're talking about resignings. Chark, don't really see him getting resigned, but Jamal Williams is up for a contract, and if they don't resign him, I'm gonna be very upset because he's definitely he's a team leader too. Anytime you see the team huddled around, he's the one in the middle talking. So they can't let him go.
Yeah, you can't let him walk after he just set a record for your franchise. Like, that's one of those guys. I'm sorry, man, but if you set a record for a franchise, that franchise needs to be like, all right, well, we're going to re-sign you until you retire, basically. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got to, you represent the Lions now, in a way. Like, yeah. Good season. And for both our teams, there's a lot of excitement for me going into 2023 and even the Cardinals. Like, this was a shitty year for the Cardinals, but at least going into the off season, looking for a new GM, new coach, there's some excitement behind that.
Nope, for sure.
And then on the Packers side, there's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers, what he's going to do. Is he going to retire?
I got a fun snippet of that.
Okay.
Did you hear that post-game interview that he gave where the reporter was like, we were all able to overhear on the field. Jameson Williams asked for your jersey, and you said,
"I gotta hang on."
And said, "Sorry, but I'm hanging on to this one." And then during the interview, they're like, "Well, why? What made this one special?" Or he said, "Why didn't you give it to him?" And Aaron Rodgers was like, "Well, there's some jerseys that are just special that you have to hang on to." Well, what was special about this game? You just lost your chance at the playoffs, And he was like, "Well, some games he said the Bears of all teams, which made me laugh. It's like some games against the Bears,
Yeah.
and, this or that or whatever." And they're like, "Well, what made this game special?" And then he's just kind of like, he totally flipped his answer to be like, "Well, I just like, this was an important game, which makes it an important jersey to give to like people that are very important to me." And I'm like, which is it? Are you making stuff up right now to cover the track of keeping the jersey from your last game? It was just very weird interview.
Yeah, I saw that interview afterwards, and because he was like, "Oh, it's Lambeau, it's prime time." It's like, you have played in Lambeau in prime time so many times in your career. That doesn't mean jack shit.
Yeah.
I personally, though, I will say this: I don't think he retires. I just don't see him as the type of competitor that will go out like this. He's too egotistical.
But
he's going to want to try to do better.
Even if it's his last game as a Packer, that would make that jersey.
Oh, I'd be happy. Yeah,
that would make that jersey special, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So
I'm just, people right now are like, "Oh, he's gonna walk away." I'm like, no. I think he's gonna end up going to another team and trying, to do what Brady Manning did, where you go to a new team and you win a Super Bowl with a new team, so that you can show that all along it was me that was good. It was I'm one of the greatest of all time. It wasn't the people around me. Mm-hmm. That's what I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna do. Where does he end up? No idea. Maybe Tampa Bay. All right. Well, so with the season over, we've got our final pick results, and we already talked about this at the top of the podcast. Last week I went 9-7, did not get my bonus, and you went 11-5 and did not get your bonus either, thanks to the Rams. So for the season, I ended 165 to 89 losses. You ended 161 to 94 losses. So you made it close at the end. But I snuck out a win. It was up and down all year. We went back and forth all season. So a lot of fun. Looking forward to it next year. And of course, we're still gonna do picks for the playoffs. So you have a chance to be our playoff champion.
I'm gonna get the win percentage here on these games because I want to see how close it actually was.
It's gotta be pretty.
So 165 plus 89, that'll give total games 254 for you. 165 divided by 254, that gives you a win percentage of 649.
Yours is 631.
631, yeah, so very close.
Yeah, and again,
65% to 63%, basically.
Yeah. And we were almost 2/3 of the time we were picking the right games. Like, if we would have been putting $1 on every one of our picks all season,
would have come out ahead.
Yeah. So not too shabby.
I like it. All right. Well, it's wild card weekend, so let's make these picks on these 6 games. The first game, I'm gonna go by what when these games are actually happening for our picks. So let me get to the schedule here. First game, Seattle, San Francisco is the first game.
Yeah, they should be in order.
Are they in order? Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, so first game is Seahawks at the 49ers. 49ers are favored by 9.5 points. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's... I'm sorry, but I don't even think the Seahawks should be in the playoffs the way they played at the end of the season.
No.
And I still feel like the Rams should have won that game. So I think it's not hard to believe that the 49ers are just going to run the table on that one.
Well, considering I picked them as my NFC champion, of course I'm going to take the 49ers.
Yeah. This is one of those See, even despite the picks at the beginning for champions of divisions, there's always the chance of a upset. But the 49ers beat the Seahawks twice already this season. Do you know how hard? And they always say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, they're at home, and the Seahawks haven't been playing well, so I don't think it'll be that hard.
And the 49ers defense, the Seattle offense is not as good as it was in the start of the year. Geno Smith hasn't been as revolutionary as he was in the first couple of weeks. So I don't see the Seahawks pulling off this upset. There are a couple upsets that I can see happening, and I picked a couple of them, but this is not one of those.
Nope. All right. Well, next up tonight, you have the Chargers favored by 2.5 points at the Jaguars because the Jaguars won their division.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Chargers simply for the fact I think they're the better team at this point. All I can say about this game is it's going to be fun to watch because it is Herbert's first game in the playoffs and it's Trevor Lawrence's first game in the playoffs. And it's crazy to think that Justin Herbert has not played in the playoffs yet. And there's fourth season? So
third.
Okay, third season? Yeah.
Yeah, but I know this one. It's funny. All 4 quarterbacks today are making their playoff debut. Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. None of them have played in the playoffs before. This game is, I think for me, it's a little bit of a toss up. I'm gonna pick the Chargers, but if we end our picks with no differences, I'll come back and switch to the Jags just so we can have a little bit of a difference.
Okay. Next up, you've got the Dolphins at the Bills in the morning game tomorrow.
I'm not even going to discuss this game. Skylar Thompson does not beat the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs.
Especially the Bills that are favored by almost 2 touchdowns.
After DeMar Hamlin returned to the practice facility today for the first time and visited with the team. Yeah. You're telling me that team's not coming out tomorrow and going to murder the Dolphins? It's not close.
That might be a bad analogy after talking about DeMar Hamlin. We don't need any more deaths on the field. We don't need deaths on the field.
I apologize.
Giants.
You bend them over and spank them. How about that?
There you go. They're going to punish them.
Just something. Yeah, they're going to get punished.
All right. Giants at the Vikings. The Vikings favored by 3 points.
I do not respect the Vikings. I'm going with the Giants.
Say as much as I don't respect the Giants, I still think the Vikings can beat the Giants. And the same reason for that is that they're not playing at night.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It's an afternoon game, so if it gets too dark,
if it starts getting dark, then he might fall apart at the end of the game if it's close.
He'll turn back into a pumpkin.
Yes, but I think the Vikings win at least one game. I don't know who they'd play after this, but I don't see them getting out of the divisional round.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would depend on who won, but I don't know. The Vikings don't impress me. The Giants have started to kind of get back to where they were in the beginning of the year, and crazy shit always happens. The favorites don't always win, so if I'm going to pick an upset, it's definitely going to be the Vikings and Kirk Cousins choking.
Ravens at the Bengals. Bengals favored by 8.5.
Bengals. That's an easy one.
I'm just filling it out already because the Ravens have not. I don't even know if they've won under Tyler
If Lamar was playing, it would be closer in my mind. But without your best player and your quarterback, you're not going to beat the Red Hot Bengals.
No. I'm with you. And last up, you've got the Cowboys favored at the Bucks.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. I'm going with the Bucks. I think the Bucks pull off the upset. Tom Brady's never lost the Cowboys. It's a primetime game. It's a playoff game. I think Brady will step up, and I think the Cowboys, much like they did against the Commanders, will falter.
Well, I'm going to take the Cowboys simply for, much like I said, I picked them as my second team to win the NFC. So
Yes.
I'll take them to figure it out this week like they couldn't against the Commanders somehow.
Yeah. Well, they better figure it out this week because they don't get any more chances.
Yeah, last chance to figure it out, guys. So
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well, there you go.
All right. Well, we'll be back with a short podcast next week.
I thought this one was going to be short, and we still went an hour 15. But yeah, next week when we have 6 games to talk about to recap, it'll be even shorter.
Yep. So, yep, we'll be back next week for episode 22, covering the wild card weekend, going into the divisional round. Things will just continue to get shorter as we go because teams will keep getting eliminated. So there you go.
Yes.
But thanks everybody for coming and hanging out and listening. And thanks to Strawberry and all the Raiders that came to hang out. BMZR, I'm glad we were able to connect all the way to Germany with you. Good to see you. And,
love our international fan.
Yes. So for everybody out there that's listening to the podcast, thank you as well. We hope that you guys are enjoying this season all the way into the end of it, and we'll just see what happens from there. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Richie, you got any closing thoughts?
No, just it's been a fun, now that the regular season's over, and it was a fun regular season as we kind of wind into the playoffs and off season. Looking forward to still having some stuff to discuss with Derek Carr's future and all the quarterbacks and the draft and the combine. I mean, there's always football to talk about. So we will be here well past the Super Bowl.
The one thing about the Lions-Packers game and the outcome of the season that I wanted to mention at that point that I was thinking about earlier today is free agency is going to be fun for the Lions because this is the type of season that makes people want to come play with your team. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to free agency.
A team on the rise.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun to cover come March, or free agency's before the draft,
March.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be
Combine's in February, free agency's in March, draft is end of April, beginning of May.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for coming out and all the support you guys give. We love it. Until next week, we will catch you on the blip side. I was going to say blind side, but flip side works. All right. Later.
Bye, everyone.